we are not rare. But before you leave, you will perceive the lore will be unlocked. You might be stalked by a Sasquatch or a ghost witch, possibly even a ghost that will boast about knowing the Ohio grassman or even the Michigan dogman. Werewolves hunt, poltergeists are up front, but in these backwoods folklore is unlocked.
Welcome to Folklore Unlocked. I'm Austin, and like always, I'm joined by Ethan.
Yep, hello again, everyone.
And this week, we are taking a look at probably the most famous airline hijacking of all time with the case of D.B. Cooper. And the description of the man known as D.B. Cooper or Dan Cooper is that he has dark hair and brown eyes and is believed to be around his 40s. And both names are false aliases used by an unidentified male hijacker.
Yeah, then we have a picture of the sketch here, too, of him.
Yes, with and without sunglasses or just glasses in general.
I hate to admit this, but I'll be honest with you, I had never heard of the D.B. Cooper hijacking before you brought this up.
Oh, come on, Ethan.
Yeah, then I saw that it was in 1971, and I'm like, oh, that's the reason why I hadn't heard of it. But yeah, anyways, like we were saying, the flight was Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, which was a Boeing 727, and it took off on November 24th of 1971. And the flight was from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington.
So, a relatively short flight.
Yeah.
Well, when this all went down, and like we said, it took place on November 24th, 1971, which was the day before Thanksgiving, and Cooper told a female flight attendant that he had a bomb, and he demanded $200,000 or $1.5 million in today's money. And he requested 4 parachutes upon landing in Seattle.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny how Cooper let the flight attendant know about the bomb that he's going to hijack, because he said that he gave her like a little note or whatever, and she just dropped it off in her purse because she thought it was just like him kind of hitting on her, maybe a phone number or something like that. And then he was like, "Hey, you really need to look at that lady," and it was like, "Hey, I've got a bomb. Come sit next to me." That was basically what the note said.
Yeah, it was like the flight attendant was like, "Oh, this is just some sad, lonely guy thinking he's got a chance."
Yep. And then I thought it was pretty smart of him to request 4 parachutes, because I didn't think about it, but that would mean that he wanted 2 front parachutes and 2 back parachutes. And the reason why was because, if he asked for 2 sets, then he could possibly be bringing a hostage. So then they might not tamper with the parachutes. So pretty smart on his part.
Exactly.
So anyways, the landing at Seattle, Cooper allowed the passengers and non-essential flight crews to unboard the plane while keeping, of course, pilot and whatnot, and instructed the 6 remaining crew members to refuel and then to begin a trip to Mexico City with another refueling in Reno, Nevada. And I also thought it was funny at this point while they're in Seattle, whenever he was counting his money while they were refueling, the flight attendant that had been like talking with him that he gave the note to, she made a joke about, "Hey, can I have some of that money or whatever?" And he literally just gives her a packet of money and just like, "Here, go ahead." And she didn't keep it, but it's just funny that he. It seems like he didn't really care about the money at all.
which is hilarious because you know he was the one that demanded it.
Yeah, yeah, it was just weird. And the reason why they had to go to a refueling at Reno, Nevada, so like I guess kind of close, was because he had specific instructions for like, oh, he wanted them to fly at a certain like elevation at a certain speed, and then he also wanted the landing gear to be down, so there was like a lot of drag on the plane, so it was going a lot slower using a lot more fuel.
And on the trip to Mexico City, which included the refueling stop in Reno, well, about 30 minutes after takeoff from Seattle, Cooper opened the aft door, which is the back, basically the back door to a plane where like you would load like the cargo and stuff. Dropped the staircase and parachuted off into southern Washington.
Oh, and fun fact: after this hijacking or whatever, they made something that made it so they someone cannot deploy the aft staircase, and it's called the Cooper vane.
So he was good for something.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't say he's good for something, but like something did come of it. The aftermath of I guess the hijacking. So it has been. He has never been found or concisely identified, even though they have the sketch and whatnot. In 1980s, there was a small portion of the ransom money that was found on the banks of the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington. We have a picture of it up top. The money looks pretty deteriorated and stuff like that since it was found in the river. The discovery reinvigorated the case, and the FBI tried to build an extensive case over 45 years, but they were not able to prosecute anyone because they did not have enough evidence. FBI also believes that Cooper did not survive his jump due to insuitable clothing and lack of proper skydiving equipment, and the FBI suspended the case in July of 2016. Now, Austin, I have a question, okay? Do you really think he survived or no?
I would like to think it was a successful hijacking just because of of everything, but I'm not now a skydiving expert, so I've got no idea.
Well, okay. I looked up like a little bit about this, and apparently there were other people that were copycatting his hijacking, and there were some people that actually were able to survive the jump, basically the same jump that he did. Not exactly, of course, but there were people that did not have experience, were about same type of clothing kind of thing, and they survived the jumps. So I mean, I think that he probably survived the jump.
I mean, like I say, I'd like to believe he did just say it was successful, but I honestly can't tell you one way or another.
Yeah.
And some evidence is that there was a clip-on tie that apparently he left that the FBI built a partial DNA profile from samples found on the tie in 2001, which I think there were bigger things in 2001 that the FBI were trying to, you know, do. However, the FBI also acknowledged no evidence linked Cooper to the source of the DNA samples. So the tie might not have even been Cooper's.
Yeah, I was looking more about that, and I think they said they found like 3 sources of DNA on the tie, and it could have been like Cooper's. It could have not. It could have been really anyone. So I mean, they couldn't really use any of that DNA.
And then that there were hair samples. Two strands of hair were found in Cooper's seat. A single strand of limb hair on the seat, and a single strand of brown Caucasian hair on the headrest. And the limb hair was destroyed after the FBI crime laboratory determined the sample lacked enough unique microscopic characteristics to be useful. And the head hair was preserved on a microscope slide, but for some reason it was lost.
That just makes me so mad. Like whenever I was reading this, I sat there. I'm like, you literally had like we assume it was the head hair of from him. I mean, it might not have been. I'm sure there's other people on the like connecting flights and whatnot that could have been on that seat, but they had hair, and they just had to keep it until like we could look at it, basically. That and they lost it. This makes me mad.
And this next one also makes me mad. There were 8 Raleigh filter tip cigarette butts that were destroyed while in the custody of the Las Vegas field office. It just wasn't one cigarette butt that was destroyed. It was 8 cigarette butts.
Yeah, that
with potential, DNA evidence to break this case wide open.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like the hair, the cigarette butts, I wish they would have separated out the 8, okay? Like they could have like different offices had a cigarette butt, or they could even cut them in half and been like, okay, you get 4, you get 4, something like that. But no, they're like, oh, we'll just send all of the cigarette butts to this Las Vegas field office, and then, oh, we don't need these things anymore. They're not useful. Burn, whatever, throw away.
And then, of course, the recovered ransom money, the 3 packets found in the Columbia River bank.
Which I did kind of think was cool that the kid that found him, like it was an 8-year-old kid, he actually got to keep some of the money. Not all of it, but some of it, and he able to sell it for, I forgot how much it was. But that was kind of cool. So on to suspects. So since they didn't really have, they had a partial DNA profile. They didn't have a full thing there. They weren't even for sure the DNA was D.B. Cooper's. But they had some ideas of who it could be, I guess. So they had Ted Braden there, who was a Special Forces commando during Vietnam. They have Kenneth Peter Christensen, which is Brother Lyle believed that Keith was Cooper. Jack Coffey was a con man, ex-convict, and alleged government informant. They had Barbara Robert Dayton, a recreational pilot and World War II vet. And then they have William Gazette, a Marine Corps Army and Army Air Force vet in Vietnam and Korea.
And then we've got more suspects with Jake Lackich, a retired U.S. Army major and Korea vet. And his daughter was killed in a botched FBI hostage negotiation less than 2 months before the hijack. We've got John List, who was an accountant, and war vet who murdered his wife, 3 kids, and his 85-year-old mother 15 days before the hijacking. withdrawing $200,000 from his mother's bank account before disappearing. We've also got Ted Mayfield, a special forces vet, pilot, competitive skydiver, and skydiving instructor who was investigated in 1994 for negligent homicide after two of his students died due to parachutes not opening. And then we've got Richard McCoy, an Army vet, Green Beret, helicopter pilot, and recreational skydiver.
That's a lot of suspects.
Well, that was me slimming like all the suspects down to like the most, like the people who I believed were like the most credible.
So this was a slim down list? Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, some of them definitely do have reasons why they might do this, so...
I mean, yeah. But going on to our thoughts, going back to our Jack the Ripper episode, go watch that if you haven't already. In the sense, I think the case is similar to it because I don't think it'll be solved because of destroyed evidence and with so much time passing between now and back then.
Yeah, I also don't think they'll find out really who D.B. Cooper really was, or, like, really solve the case in general. I don't think it'll ever be solved. Kind of like we talked about with the cigarette butts and hairs being destroyed while being evidence that could possibly have gave us DNA about who he was, but also D.B. Cooper could possibly have died during the skydiving. That's what the FBI kind of thought anyways. So I guess they could find a body or something like that, but I did see that they had helicopters and they also had, I don't know exactly, some military, like I think 100 military people walking through the woods or whatever around where it was, and they could not find anything. So that kind of leads me to say that he probably survived the skydiving. But yeah, I don't think there's any way we're actually going to find out who it is unless DB is getting older. He's like, well, let me use some of this money I have.
Exactly, or he just comes down and says, hey, I'm D.B. Cooper.
Yeah.
But at this case, I think either whoever D.B. Cooper is probably no longer with us since it's been 53 years since the incident, and if he was around his 40s, that would make him, let's say, about 93 today. So he's either really old or no longer with us. Well, I think that's all we've got for this week, Len. Next week we'll be taking a look at the Curse of Oak Island.
Oh, gosh.
Which is, well, interesting to say the least.
They think it's interesting.
Exactly. But with that, if you're on YouTube, drop us a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on Spotify, drop us a follow. And we'll see you next week.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
You might wake up beside Spearfinger with an extended visit from Jack the Ripper. But if you're lucky, it'll be an angel on that range hill of Louisiana. You might meet Mary Laveau or the Rugaroo. Like Folklore Unlocked, Austin and Ethan concoct their theory of the eerie and unexplained around the world, sometimes even the underworld. The lore is locked behind secrets, the folklore is meant to be unlocked. The Sokaloo is haunting NC as well as Tennessee. There are many giants that might be clients of the Dark Watchers, who might have psychokinesis. And the phantom time hypothesis is like the phoenix, coming back around again and again. Though it is a strain on your brain if you've got more than 2 brain cells in you. Some believe McCartney is dead because they read into the Mandela effect, which is subject to folklore.